Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sorry I'm a little late. Just trying to get all my files set up. I'm sure you know how that goes. Just give this a chance to fire up and let people jump in. Let's see, I got Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube is connected. For those of you on YouTube, if you're tuning in, let me know. Looks like everything's fine. Aries Lopez. Well, when you start, what do you mean, like the whole thing or the stream? If you're asking about the stream, I started this, I don't know, maybe 4 streams ago. I've kind of been just slowly making my way. Let's see here. Let me make sure I get the right project loaded up. Mike, what's going on? So, just to preface here, I've kind of been working on this scene. I'm actually, while I'm getting this thing going, just got to delete a couple assets in this thing. Getting close to wrapping up this thing. I'm basically doing got my images up here on the left side, doing a mashup of Gaff from Bladerunner and Luigi from Super Mario, if that's not obvious. Almost there. So like I've got working on KeyShot renders, trying to finalize all these components and things. Let's save this just as a quick backup. This, I'd say over the course of 4 streams now, this is like, I don't know, 5-6 hours, 7 hours. I've been slacking on my game as far as I don't put any extra time into this outside of doing these streams. I'm trying to do it with you guys. So I've kind of just been going through and troubleshooting as I go, sort of coming up with different ways to build some of these components. You know, if I could take a look at the Gaff character I'm working on. Last stream I sort of polished up and finalized the major sort of hurdle I was trying to figure out is how to get these stripes happening in this jacket and do it in a sort of stylized way. So you can check that out in the VOD. For the last stream, I showed a couple tips as far as how to get these parts and components, which are still in a state where there's separate subtools sitting on top. So I'm basically, one thing I'm going to have to do outside of the stream is resurface on top of all this, which I started using Z-sphere topology. And I may touch on that next stream to finish up a final pose here. So while I'm going to, first thing is I want to just do a quick KeyShot setup so I can do some renders while we're working. Felipe, good night. The plan today, Felipe, is, well, let's see, I've got basic just solid shaders assigned. I've got everything working. What I probably am going to need to do is polish up the character's gun. So like, for example, I've got the backpack almost finalized, and like a lot of these parts and components were some done with ZModeler, then taken to live Booleans to generate all these major backpack components, and then I've got to just finish up the rough out of the gun, which I've got working. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of live Booleans to start off, and let me just load my pistol build. Yeah, so this is just rough, block out some of these parts, ZModeler. Some a couple insert meshes, but I gotta really finalize this as well. So let's save this scene. It's funny, I always end up, my save files, I'm up to version 41. I always get to about 50, 55. That's about where I'm done. It's just like usually a couple weeks of just back and forth work. And then, okay, so I'm just going to get my KeyShot scene. So I created a scene. If you guys do use KeyShot, There's one thing that you have to account for when you're sending files over from ZBrush to KeyShot, where once you close the applications, the connections are going to be lost for those materials. So I started off by creating a scene, and I went into File and I saved it as a package. So doing the package is going to basically allow me to have all the models sitting in a packaged file that I can load up, and I've got materials assigned. And then just as an added bonus measure, I went in and I created custom materials that I saved. So all the materials that I'm going to be using, I've saved. I've modified these a little bit after doing a quick render last stream, and then I went in and I made, just going into my materials folder, I created a new group with Solomon's materials, and I've got Luigi. Its character's been done. Gaff mixed with Luigi. Gaff mixed with Luigi equals Luigi. But I went through and I saved all these materials, which you can do after you assign them. You can go to, say, Edit Material, name it something, and click the little Save button here, which gives you the option to put it in a folder. So that way I can easily reassign. So I'm going to send this over to KeyShot again, which is going to reassign some of these materials. So this thing, let's go back to ZBrush. Get my scene up in here. And what I want to do is, I'm thinking I want to start setting up, once I polish up the gun, maybe set up just a basic little either pose, or at least get the environment going, and maybe play around with how to get some cool rain effects or doing some things like that. So I'm going to try and keep this sort of centered around polishing up this final scene. And first we'll start off with live Booleans, but let's go and set up my render. Yeah, I'm definitely going to put a G on his hat, Mike. That actually, you know what? I'll do that. I'll do that today. I'll do that in a second. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm sort of playing around with, like, as far as the character goes, he's got certain elements of Luigi, sort of the overalls, the shoes, the hat, of course the mustache, but him and Gaff share that. So thinking for the hat, maybe just to do, if you see Gaff's hat up in the top, maybe doing a sort of bowler style hat, or sort of playing around with this. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that and see how it looks, maybe change the color of it. But although the green is kind of iconic for him, so it's kind of difficult to play around with these colors and do a proper mashup. Might have to get a little bit more creative. So let's see, we'll go back to my KeyShot real quick. So this sent everything over from my base paint that I do have assigned, but then just going to go in here real quick and reapply the shirt and all these other ones. I'm using a lot of the plastic soft materials to get that sort of translucent effect. So it's giving me that to kind of go in. If we go back and just take a look at the test render that I got going, it gives it a sort of a soft kind of edge effect where I can sort of keep that stylization, but then also get a really nice sort of toy-like, or toy-like yet semi-realistic in a way as well. And let's see, so go back to my and then anything that I do shared, I'm just pasting link materials to these assigned parts. Maybe this one I'm going to make just a little bit lighter for that. And let's see what else. Got my skin. Oh, I did forget to do the gloves, so let's make a new one. So just to show you just the quick basic premise, I'm just going in. Gloves, I'm just going to assign a gray. Usually white doesn't always translate very well, especially in the render. So I'm starting off with a gray. Let's copy that and paste it on the and then these ones. So I'm going to name this soft translucent gloves. And make sure I save this to my folder for later. I'm going to do the subsurface as just a light shade of red, maybe, just to give it a little almost chromatic aberration kind of feel. Maybe make these like 0.5 translucency. And let's save that one more time. So in anything I do have polypaint assigned, I'm just holding Alt and dragging it over to assign on top of that, along with the paint that I've got in ZBrush, the polypaint. And then let's just do one more. Looks like I forgot to save the overalls as well. So this stuff, when you go to File, Save as a Package, it does save it, saves these materials that we're customizing in here. So I almost made it easy on myself. Let's do like a soft ref blue, hold Alt, drag that on top of those guys. And I'm just bumping up the translucency a little bit, which just makes that plastic effect just a little bit softer. And the one thing that I do like to do, anything that I have polypaint that I'm going to keep updating, inside of the texture properties, we can actually go and bump up the texture brightness and contrast from that polypaint. So ZBrush sends over just a base texture with that, and I think I'm going to make this maybe 1.5, which will make that texture pop a little bit more through the material properties as well. And then I believe, let's check the texture for the skin. Yeah, the skin for the face, I set that to 1.5 brightness and contrast just to bump it up a little bit, and we should be good. And then now that I've got, since the last stream, I've just added in the backpack, which is eventually going to connect to the hose that goes to his gun. So let's just go through and just assign some final materials in here. copy this one. But then let's go edit this and make this color something a little bit lighter. And maybe make this a little bit less black. Now let's see the light bulb. That one's going to be a little bit trickier. Let's see. Here's what I got. Here's what we're going for. So we got this sort of, if you haven't been checking out the stream, basically I'm taking the Luigi's Mansion concept. So if Gaff and Luigi are mixed together, then he's got to still be some kind of a Bladerunner, but maybe instead of hunting replicants, he's hunting replicant-like ghosts from Luigi's Mansion. So I'm kind of keeping the backpack, but then using the Bladerunner pistol that might attach to this flashlight, and then have the hose and all that. So maybe I want to do a pose where he's sucking up maybe a replicant ghost or something like that. So I got those little things. I'm just playing around with these real quick, and then we'll come back to this. Make this one like a darker kind of blue. And just play around with the alright, so let's bring everything back. Let's see, I want plastic, soft. And let's bump up that texture brightness a little bit. Alright. And then real quick, I'm just going to go and save this package as a new one since I'm going to update these assets, or I could overwrite this one. I'm going to say for now let's do this as version 2 with all these newly saved materials. That way if I ever need to, I can come back to this. Kyle's in. What's up, Kyle? Side effects you were asking about KeyShot with subscription. This basically, you've got a couple options. You can purchase a KeyShot for ZBrush version, which is a stripped down version of KeyShot that's a little bit cheaper, and you can purchase the KeyShot bridge where we're actually rendering and sending this over. So those are packages you can buy, or you can buy the bridge and then get a full version of KeyShot. But either way, you're going to have to buy one of those major packages. And if you go to the Pixologic store, you'll find all of that, all those different packages there at all the price points and things. But if you haven't used it, honestly, since we did the ZBrush bridge to KeyShot, I haven't really done much rendering outside of it, just because of the ease of access. KeyShot brings on all these high resolution models, so I don't have to deal with, especially while concepting and doing these things, I don't have to deal with retopo or resurfacing, doing all these kinds of UVs. I can do that later, of course, which in most cases I would like to. And for this one, I actually wanted to do a final, maybe ZBrush high-res render, and then maybe once I finish all these parts and pieces, do a quick rebuild for game and do a real-time render. Maybe just take it into Marmoset or find some outlet, so maybe I could do a game res version of this. If you guys are interested, let me know. I'd be happy to do that. Which would kind of get me to go into using, say, Z-sphere topology, building UVs, doing all that kind of, which is very technical stuff. I realize not everybody's into that, so it's kind of, I would leave that up to you guys. I know it's more fun to just watch people sculpt and get the tips inside of ZBrush, so I'm gonna take this, put this over on the right side and keep him working. And now let's go back to the scene here and figure out what I want to do next. Yeah, I really want to get this pistol finished up. So let's see, I'm going to quickly make sure I save this spotlight. So I'm using Spotlight as a reference tool. Going into texture, I'll show you the process. Basically, I'm going to go to my texture, import from my reference. I do have, let's see, any Bladerunner weapons. Here we go. I think I cut these out. Yeah, let's do this one and this one. So I'm shift clicking both images, importing, and with Spotlight, if you press Z to turn the wheel on, when the wheel's active, you can actually import those images at the same time. So then I'm just going to go in here and rearrange this. Alright, let's see what's next. So maybe let's finish off all these little components going on in here. Brain, you said you're interested in technical stuff. Sweet. Okay, cool. Well then, we got one. That's enough for me. And if anybody's lost or anything, I am using my own custom UI. So if there's anything you want me to touch on, I'll do my best to keep tabs on the chat here and answer those questions. So crease. So while I'm doing live Booleans, especially with dealing with low poly, I spend a lot of time using the crease levels and dynamic to preview the level of smoothing on my edges. So instead of getting that full sort of hard edge CG sort of look when if the creases, I'm using creases on all my edge loops instead of adding physical edge loops to increase the poly count. So this way I can choose what levels I want it to smooth instead of going through and applying those things back and forth. Alright, so we got, I think when I left off, some of these parts, like this piece for example, to create that sort of inner cut line, that was done with live Booleans, so I'll be doing some more of that if you aren't familiar with this process. So to start off, this piece, I've got this little lever that's dipping in here, so I can do that with live Booleans actually really easily. And I just need to figure out what parts I'm going to line up. So I've got the sort of the round loader, the round revolver portion here that's also got this cut line. So I'm going to move this up to the top here. So I'm going to start off by, I'm going to close off and set all these other parts and pieces below within its own start group, so these Booleans won't affect those. And then we'll do this one as its own start group. And then first I want to get that little groove happening where this lever is going into. So normally in this case I start off, we can either insert a primitive object, but these 3D meshes are going to have a certain type of mesh flow where they're polarized in a way. So you've got, like, if I wanted to bring in a cube would be the easiest, probably easiest way. But this cube, just as far as the poles and the way this is remesh, is a certain type. So what I want to do is, we can do a little trick and just go Control-Shift-D to duplicate this same piece up here, then turning on the gizmo. And I can go into the gizmo settings and grab just the base polycube. Let's just turn off all these other ones for now. So we can start out by just setting this piece to subtract. In my custom UI, normally you guys will have live Booleans up here in the top left. I've just moved this down to within my menu, so I could fit more stuff. I keep all my live Boolean stuff here, including the make Boolean mesh that exists in subtool Boolean to actually convert that mesh. So then, kind of just modeling this. This looks like it's got a rounded out little curvature, so what I can do is solo this out. Let's try, I'm going to delete this edge loop and this one. So we've got two adjacent faces, and maybe let's do a bridge connected polys. So dragging up to add edge loops left and right to increase elevation. And then once I apply that, but I do want to get mirror and welded. Yeah, there we go. So an edge is right down the perfect center. Now there's sometimes where you're reapplying these Z-modeler actions where you'll see, I can tell here where I see the frame of the edge, if I press D to smooth, looks like there's manifold edges or laminate faces underneath. So sometimes reapplying the same action will give you this kind of effect. And then also the bridge connect has this issue where we leave a couple extra verts in some cases, and it always depends on the mesh, and it's not always consistent. But what I can do is go to stitch and just stitch these points back to that vert really quick. And then another little trick to fix those verts, most likely if I go into Geo, modify topo, there's a weld points. So clicking weld points, at the default, normally this will weld those things, but if I increase this distance incrementally up to 2, you'll see that just welded it. So that weld at distance 2, looks like it sealed that up. And then if I just want to, this thing's sitting vertically, so what I can do is do a quick modify topo. Let's do a local symmetry and mirror and weld locally. So that way I get this thing perfectly symmetrical. And if you watch my streams, this is I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I do my inside of polygroups. We've got group by normals, which I've assigned to Control-Shift-9. So whoops, maybe that's broken. I'll do this again. So going to polygroups, this option, clicking this, it's going to assign unique polygroups to those major faces or those surface normals. And then I can go inside of Geo with crease polygroups. I can crease those polygroups, press D, and now it's going to start smoothing out those edges. So my creasing I have assigned to Control-Shift-C. And then just to do that hotkey again, if you Control-Alt-click on this button, now in the top left ZBrush will tell me I can assign my key combo. So I'll do Control-Shift-9. So it's just reassigning it over. And then I can go to hotkeys and I can store those. Make sure that that sticks the next time I launch. Now, what I want to do is maybe figure out, I'm going to have to make this piece really quick. So what I could do is now, I'm going to keep that same piece, since it's a nice clean cube. And I'm going to need this sub 1, I'm going to duplicate this one. And start a new group for this piece here. So I want to start to keep that one there, this guy. Do a little quick save. Take it easy, side effects. Thanks for tuning in. We'll definitely have fun. Always. Now, let's see, for this one, actually I think I'm just going to modify this really quick. So I'm going to go to Key Mesh, collapse these faces. Another little tip, I have Control-Shift-P as auto groups, so I can auto group that shell, hide it, and now just delete it. So I just modified that. And then I just want to get this little shape down here, so let's go do some inserting edges. Maybe do a little slide. Alright, now do my creasing, but then this group I don't want to crease. Or actually, let's try this. I want to keep this a solid edge back there. So then I can just hide my polygroups. I'm going to go in and turn on display properties double. Crease those guys. And then let's do this now. I'm going to do a modification to these creases. So I'm going to tell it to start smoothing at about 2 and crank this up to 4. Maybe I could play around with softening this by doing a little bevel edge loop. Or actually, before I do that, so this thing's wrapping up and over. So actually, first things first is let's make this the add portion. And I want to complete this arc up into that button. So a little trick, something we can do is we can take this polygroup hold control as I extrude to break this off, and then now we've got a new shell. I'm just going to take this group, angle this, so I might need to do a little cleanup here. I'm going to have to delete these first to make this work. So I can delete this poly and this poly, so I can create that hole. Oops, let's delete that edge loop first. And then now I can go to the edge action, do a bridge holes. We can maybe do round corners. Oh, let's try a different one. Use the mouse for this. And now let's see. Oh, Sir Thomas Whittlesbach has joined us. How's it going, man? We'll say that's good. So this is going to be my ad. I'm going to duplicate this one. We'll set that as its own start group, and this we'll rename to sub1. I'm just going to take this, scale just a little bit. Alright, that's looking good to me. Now what's next? Should probably get the triggers going real quick, so let's do that. So I can start off by just using a 6-sided cube here. Joseph and Paul. Yeah, there's been a few things going on recently that's been keeping those guys especially have been busy. I don't know, Kyle, what's the schedule? Do you have them coming on anytime soon? Let's try a circle. I want to make this just a little bit thinner. Alright, let's do a quick mirror and weld in X and Z. Oh, whoops. Where am I at in there? Local symmetry. Alright, now this is a small little detail, but if you can see it, looks like there's a little bit of sort of curvature happening on that, sort of bowing out, but it's got a nice creased edge on the side. So a little trick you can do with the modeler is I'm going to clear out any edge loops across this span here and go into Insert Multiple and use the interactive, we could do specific resolution, we'll say maybe 6 edges. And then interactive elevation. So we can click and hold and then click and drag left or right to kind of add that little sort of rounding out of those edges. And then let's go in here now. I'm just going to take these, flatten those at the top. And then let's do a quick reassigning of those polygroups. Alright, double trigger. Last but not least for this portion. So let's see, quick little trick we could try. Let me just quick save this. Sigma 3030, I just saw your message. How long did I work on ZBrush in this particular project here? This particular part I maybe only spent 45 minutes or so initially, plus the time I just did here just to play around with these things. The whole scene's been about 4 streams, so 2 for maybe more like 5, maybe like 8 hours. I definitely, I'm a slow worker, especially when I'm here with you guys. I just get talking. But I tend to narrate, so if you guys hate it and you guys just want to watch me work, you know, feel free to let me know. But I'm thinking for this trigger, for these things, what we can do is maybe take this ring 3D and play around with the coverage. Scale that down like so. So then let's make this. I'm just going to take this and just do a quick so I'll send that to home. Just realigning this thing so I got my X symmetry. Now, what I want to do is start off by cleaning this up. Let's Z-remesh this thing pretty low. So I'm keeping this thing set to half, and I'm just going to keep going down until I get a decent thing here going. Okay, great. Now I'm going to go and just modify one side. Then let's take this now. Mirror and weld that. There we go. Now, next thing I'm going to do is let's just do a quick little poly group on these. let's do deformation, polish by features, just to smooth out those groups, and then now crease those polygroups. Except for this one's not quite right. Alright, it's too messy, but whatever. Let's just leave it for now. Let's go. Maybe I should have just done it with a cube. Let's do trigger 1. This is where my OCD kicks in. I just really hate that. Let's see if I can go back a little bit lower. No adaptive. Okay, that's a little better. Screw it. Moving on. Moving on. No point in dwelling on that. Okay, let's see. What else do I gotta do? I gotta fill in this extra little space on the inside too. Sorry, just checking on the chat. Mike, I am definitely going to pose him. Once I finalize all these assets, which, based on this speed, I'm just fiddling with these tiny little things. This is where I start getting really nitpicky about tiny stuff like this, which is just not worth the time. But, yes, I am definitely going to pose it. I'm almost done. The gun's kind of a big part of the pose. Especially if I want to go into doing sort of like a Bladerunner style, like hero pose, or I don't know yet. I definitely want to do some sort of like really fun action pose with Luigi. So you haven't missed it. I will. The way that this is panning out right now, I'm guessing that's going to be just pretty much all next stream is finishing the render and doing the pose along with that. So let's crease these ones really quick. So that's where that stuff can go. Okay, let's make some. So I got some little nuts and bolts and things going on in here. Just want to polish off the rest of that. That might have to be a live Boolean piece. Alright, let's see. We got 3:30. Oh boy, oh boy. Time is running out. Alright, give me 2 minutes. I'm going to use the rest of them, and I'll try and polish off the last little bits. I think I'm just going to speed this up and use just a ton of insert meshes and go through just filling in the little greebles. I'll be back. Alright, let's see here. Let's go with just speed this thing up. Let's grab some insert mesh pieces in here. Maybe let's see, extender. Set this one to subtract. Let's duplicate that one. duplicate this guy. I want to Boolean this one. Sorry, I got really focused. Trying to speed this up a little bit. I'm going to do a mesh from brush. So that way, what I can do now is just take this thing. Let's go. Here and weld this in Z. Now I can delete this edge loop so I get that thing straight across. Or actually, you know what? I don't want that to be perfect. Let's go. Delete and I'm just gonna close that like so. Or actually, might be a little bit better to do the close convex. We can go to close convex hole. There we go. Just going to use that to do a little subtraction, but then also let's do this really quick. Alright, man, time just flies. Let's go. I'm gonna do one more quick little Boolean. Still gotta finish off the little back part of the trigger too. Let's just make up a serial number, yeah? And alright. Let's clean this up a little bit. I got a mess. Maybe I'll just do it like somewhere down here. Okay, let's have some fun. Actually, I just had an idea. Let's go do one more. What I should do is find the Bladerunner font and load that in, but maybe I'll do that once I finish this stream. Just maybe update this. Does anybody remember if these guns have a trigger? Or like a cocking mechanism, which I'm pretty sure they would have to. That old-fashioned, like, Western. Take a look at this. Actually, not so much. Looks like it slices off into different components, but no actual loader. So then I guess let's undo that. Maybe just do a little extruding. Make this look a little bit more interesting. Let's divide this once. Okay, let's see. Insert a single edge loop with a little bit of elevation, let's say like 2. Okay, maybe a lot more. Let's do like 10. Okay, interactive. Just want to get this sort of like textured thing going on in some of these rivets and things where this is where the let's do array texture. Probably have to finish this off here in a second. And then making that one piece, array it, lock the position. Let's do some repeats. And then turn on transpose, gizmo off. Now we can start increasing these. That looks pretty good. Except this base piece is just a mess right now. Let me try something here. Let's flatten that one. Now I'm just going to start generating a few more of these parts and pieces. Trigger main, that thing's not a Boolean, we can turn on. So I'm just going to run this Boolean system, but I don't want to do any additional Booleans that I don't need to. So let's just go start group all these parts. This one I definitely want. Alright, dynamic subdivision on. Let's do a little quick save. Sigma 3030, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. Some things I'll switch to the mouse. It's just a thing, like it depends on if I'm doing like little like sort of minutia kind of things. Sometimes I'll switch to the mouse just playing around with settings and stuff, but then when I'm going around and like sculpting or using even like array mesh, I'll use the pen. It really depends, which sometimes I don't even pay attention to it. I'll just switch to the mouse for some reason if I just get annoyed or frustrated, where it really comes down to like if the controllers are in front of me and I can't quite visualize it, I'll switch to the mouse so I can see it a little bit more clearly. Okay, so then let's go. Got that thing working. Oh, actually, I think what I want to do is this piece. Let's delete this one and this one really quick. So I want to readjust this Boolean system where this piece right here, this array and this part, I want to actually do this in the, let's go move this up. That's going to be an add. That's a subtract. But then I want to put that below this guy, or above this guy. So moving these up above that other subtraction should now cut off that little additional component that's sort of jammed into there. So let's try this one more time. I'm just going to redo them all so I can get them all in a tool. You're a mouse guy? Interesting. Do you sculpt with a mouse? Or are you just doing like a lot of low poly modeling for the most part? A member of our team actually sculpts with a mouse still. Refuses to use a pen, but hey, whatever works for you. I mean, that's, my hat's off to you. That's a major skill, honestly. Alright, so now I'm going to go in, let's turn off all these Boolean systems. Okay, I'll turn everything out. Let's start by turning that one off. Just want to get these consolidated. That's a Boolean. And that's a Boolean. Now I'm going to do, wait, what's this guy? I'm just going to do a quick merge visible to get those components working, and then let's insert those into this. Do a auto group. Let's do a split, group split. And last but not least, I just want to make sure that everything is mirror and welded. So I'll quick save one more time. You're saying latest versions, a lot of crash issues. I think it's dependent on the hardware. Some people with top PCs are getting crashes. Interesting. Like as well, since we've are you referring to 2018.1 as well? There were some performance adjustments that we had to make with let's do subtool master mirror visible subtools in the Z axis. Or wait, no, I don't want to do that. But yeah, there were some adjustments that we made to performance issues, but maybe there's something different. Is it using certain tools, ZModeler, or do you happen to remember what those were? Just random. Interesting. Well, if you come across them, definitely send us a ticket in support. If it's something that you can reproduce and you're getting it multiple times, or it's happening frequently by doing a certain amount of things, that's really beneficial for all of us to track, and we can just make a report, and it's easier to get those things fixed. Okay, so let's see. What do I want to do here? I want to take all these parts. Let's save this as pill. I usually keep a separate ZTL for the UMesh builds, and we'll say pistol complete. Now, I just want to do a quick, well, we can go ahead and let's take a look at my scene over here. So this thing's been rendering, which I haven't made any updates to this, so it's really not that big of a deal. But just to finish this off, so I started a little late, so I'll just maybe finalize this with 5 more minutes of doing some material assigning. Yeah, well, if you are definitely getting these kinds of crashes, man, be sure to post any tickets you get with those things so we can take care of that. Because for the most part, all my support that I do on the side, which many of us do, sort of work intermittently in support just to kind of help out when we can. And so far, 2018.1 seems to have resolved a lot of that stuff that was happening with, especially the performance issues. Looks like I got some issues in there. Cool. Yeah, thank you. It's much appreciated too. We appreciate all the help from you, and we get a lot of people that will take the time to make a thorough report and give us some steps or example files. All right. Oh man, I forgot about the grip. See if we can do a quick one. Oh, let's go duplicate. Grip detail. I'm just going to assign a quick little poly group to some of these parts. Stitch these guys together. I'm going to bring in the old array texture. With default key for delete hidden, there is no inside of Geo. It's the location is modified topology. Delete hidden is here inside of this menu, which there's no default hotkey, so you can assign your own if you need to. Which that's one that I end up using a lot. So I put that one in my custom menu to make that a little bit easier to access. Remesh, boom. Let's turn on the transpose. So I'm just using the transpose option here to kind of get this aligned, but then I can go back to the gizmo and now play around with this one a little bit more to get this going into that grip. And now let's duplicate that one. Set that to subtract. And then now let's do a cross there. Wonder, it's actually something I've never tried. If I go, let's just turn the grip on. If I make this thing go all the way through, can't guarantee it's gonna. That would be kind of cool. Do some going traveling through, and the other ones don't quite complete. And then let's do the make Boolean mesh. Oh, no errors. All right. Even I love it. You never know what you're going to get. It always depends on the algorithm and how it's going to go through and look at those surfaces, but that actually turned out pretty good. All right, so then now I'm going to just delete these for now. Get rid of that grip detail. Let's add the new U mesh. Yeah, thanks, Sigma. I appreciate that. Yeah, it does. It's not. I probably like if I'm gonna do this, I'm probably gonna go ahead and make sure I frame it around those buttons a little bit better. But as far as like a previs, it's not too bad. Let me just update that. Whoops. Make sure we send this to KeyShot. Yeah, after success, Dougie chimes in with the save reminder. Much appreciated, Dougie. You're absolutely correct. Yep, there you go, guys. And let's see if we do like a... No. Oh, what are you doing? There we go. See, this is where I start. This is where I go to mouse. Best place to start with ZBrush. That is right. Oh man, I'm still not sure. I'm gonna have to play around with some metallic materials to or some liquid materials to get that working, which this is gonna take far too long. Where are we at with time? It's 4:17. I'm already going over. So I guess at this point, let's just go with scene. Oh, jeez. We'll just leave it at that. I'll do some renders on all this stuff eventually once I finish up the last little bits. But for now, it's starting to look pretty good. It's getting closer. So next stream, I think what I'm going to have to do is just actually spend a little bit of time and not do any more of this messing around with the modeling stuff, and we'll get to posing and finishing off all these things. So we got for now the pistol's fairly much there, pretty much there, and then I've got the backpack is almost ready. So I've got those those pieces good to go, and then the rest will just be kind of going in and playing around with. I already started making this sort of like tube that's going to connect. So these would be ghosts getting sucked up into the tube, or replicants in that sense. So I'll combine all these things and we'll get to posing and all of that next stream. But yes, so let me check if you guys have any quick questions. Looks like you guys are just chatting. You just the Wizzle, you had a question. Well, you just started modeling sculptors, but you don't want to start. What kind of reference do you recommend for a total noob? Yeah, so Sigma's recommending Learn Z-Spheres. Yeah, that's a good place to start. And if you're just getting started with Sculptors Pro, to be honest, that's just free sculpting and just using the move brush and moving things around. So I would recommend if you're new to ZBrush at all, check out I mean, you can watch a lot of the streams, of course, but just looking up time lapses of people sculpting in ZBrush is actually really helpful just to see the methodology of how somebody starts. There's other good streamers that do a lot of that stuff. Shane Olson is a great sculptor, and he does a lot of stylized work, but as far as the process and combining all those things, artists like that, just even watching time-lapse videos is a good place to start. And you know, you'll sort of naturally get the comfort of finding the right resolution and settings. But I would definitely start by doing that. You could even just Google search or YouTube search ZBrush Sculptors Pro sculpting or time lapses, and or check out our streams. There's plenty of artists that are going to be using that and sort of free flowing. And my last stream, if you want to check it out, the VOD, I did a little bit of sculpting on I was working on this sort of Yoshi cane. So this was all Sculptors Pro for the most part. I started with Dynamesh and then moving on to combining Dynamesh and Sculptors Pro and how to make use of those things to just free flow and sculpt. So you could check that out as well. But otherwise, yeah, it looks like Kyle's posting stuff on Discord. Yeah, thanks, Dougie. Much appreciated. Everybody have a great week, and I will see you guys in the next stream. I promise I'll have this stuff set up so we can start creating the final scene. So until then, happy ZBrushing, everybody.